Hey everybody, I'm Howard, and this is Otter's Retirement Corner. Before I get into today's topic, I just want to apologize. On my last video, where I talked about finances between spouses, everybody, put in some really great comments about how they do things, and I just want to tell you I really appreciate that. I try to comment back on everyone, but there were some issues, some technical issues, I guess, with YouTube and me being able to comment. I think I've cleared that up now going forward, but if you don't see comments on that last video, I apologize. But again, thanks everybody. I wasn't looking to discuss what you do with you. I just wanted to hear what you do and hear all the different perspectives. So I appreciate that. And, a lot of you told me some personal things about how you handle your finances. And, that's good for everyone to see and everyone get that perspective. So thank you. Okay, so today, as a lot of you have been waiting for, I want to talk about my visit with Fidelity Investments. My wife and I went and saw them Monday afternoon, spent about an hour there. They have been calling me for several months, maybe even a year, every few months, to come and meet with them. Absolutely free, no commitments. Hey, we just want to come and review your account. I went in there fully expecting, as I'm sure most of you did, that they were going to try to sell me on advisory services or something. So, I went in there with that open mind. And the first thing I want to say is, man, what a beautiful location they have. They're right on Tampa Bay on the 8th floor, window facing out over the bay, and then you can see St. Pete, and then you can see the ocean beyond that. The woman who is my rep, I guess, has that same window view. Just beautiful. What shocked me though is that there were no paintings or decorations anywhere in the office. It was about as bare bones as you can imagine. I worked in banking a really long time, and all of our corporate offices and large offices had millions of dollars worth of art in them. So this was, in one sense it was kind of surprising, but in another sense, good. Don't spend your money on that crap. Everyone's got their own opinion on that. So, like I said, my wife and I spent an hour there and reviewed our holdings. The first thing we did. My wife and I went over everything we own as far as money and investments. Almost all of it is at Fidelity, so they already know mostly what's there. But there are, I have a deferred account. My wife has an inheritance and a trust. We added those things in so that they can get the full picture for us. And, we pretty much just went wherever she wanted to lead us because interested in hearing what, her opinion was and what she wanted to tell us about. We had a few questions later on, but, this is how it went. So what she did is she modeled our accounts and what they'll look like going forward based upon our ages, retirement. My wife kind of working part-time now, maybe retiring, what our spending and investments are. And, they modeled that in their software, which, I could kind of do, but not to the extent that they did it, because they gave me 3 breakdowns. They said, here's how much money you'll have at, your age 90 if the market does really bad. Here's how much you'll have if the market does badly. And here's how much you'll have if the market does what we expect to be average. And I'm used to seeing bad, average, great. But this was really bad, bad, average. And the good news was, and this was particularly important for me because I wanted my wife to see this because these are the things I've been telling her. But when she sees the numbers and the models, it sort of reinforces it. But even on the worst case scenario, the market losing 20, 30%, sequence of returns is bad, inflation is high, whatever the case, we had over a 90% chance of not running out of money. Worst case scenario, worst markets. So when you get to the average market, we've got 3, 4, 5 times the money, depending on how things roll out and how far you take it, so that we couldn't spend enough money to go broke. So that was good to hear. Of course, it depends on 100 different things and that could change, and I understand that. But again, good to see. So then she talked about what Fidelity sees going forward, and this was the really interesting part. You know, every bank and every investment company has their report they put out saying, "Here's what we think is going to happen going forward." Are they right? I, I don't track how often they're right or wrong, but I know often they're wrong. I know often they're right. So 50-50, I don't know. But here's their take. They showed us a chart of where they think most countries, the major economies, where they are in their cycles and where they're going up or down, up and down, up and down. The U.S. they feel is on a downward trend right now for several reasons. Mostly not knowing how the economy is going to react to tariffs. Not so much not knowing, but they know how it's going to react to tariffs. They just don't know what the tariffs are going to be or when they're going to change. It's that not knowing that makes forecasting really difficult. But they think the tariffs are going to be in place for a while. They're going to be bad. They're wrong. We're not doing this correctly, and it's just going to hurt the economy. And so they see us in a downward trend. And for that reason, they think foreign stocks should be a much larger portion of most people's portfolios, and particularly mine. I just recently cut my international stock allocation, and I explained that to them that I was much higher, but I had done really well, so I cut it back a little bit. They think 25% is a good target minimum for foreign stocks now. They like Japan a lot. Over the last 40 years, I can probably count 100 times where someone said, this is it, Japan's going to be, economy's finally going to take off. Never happens, but they're very pro-Japan. So they weren't saying just invest in Japan, but they were saying international stocks should do relatively well now, especially compared to American stocks, so the allocation should be higher. They think in this downturn, large cap stocks, U.S. stocks, will do far better than small cap stocks. My wife leans a lot towards small cap, so they thought she should change that allocation. And my wife might do that or might not. She doesn't necessarily listen to what I suggest to her. I don't tell her what to do. We have different investment ideas, so she does her thing. Maybe this will change her, maybe it won't. I don't know. The other thing they like, especially because they see inflation from the tariffs, is commodities. And I asked, well, specifically, what commodities are you talking about? Is it gold? Is it corn? Is it wheat, soy? What are we talking about? Well, we just like commodities. So, I'm not a big commodities investor. There are some funds you can invest in that cover either individual commodities or a basket of commodities. I don't know that I'll do that. I'll think about it. I'm not really strongly convinced. They also like REITs relative to, in the past. I just really got out of REITs. Whenever I go into REITs, they do poorly. It's like I can never, I'm not saying I'm timing it, but I've been in REITs many times and they always underperform the rest of the market. So I'm, kind of throwing up my hands. If I have a large scale index fund like DFUS, it will have some REITs, although they purposely leave out a lot of REITs because they think that makes their index fund underperform. So I'm kind of going with the DFUS dimensional funds thinking on this right now. So that was, that was the gist of this. And, I talked about trusts and wills, and, I've been telling my wife we don't really need trusts because of what we have and, what our inheritances will look like and who we have, to inherit and who we have as relatives right now. And she didn't think we need trusts, so that, again, reinforced it with my wife. We do need a will in case both of us die at the same time. But they weren't selling that. They weren't selling anything. And that was the most remarkable part of this. I fully expected at some point she was going to say, now I think you should get with our financial advisor, here's the fee structure, here's what you can do, here's what we'll do for you. Or, here's some other product that we think will work for you. Never, nothing, zero. It was just purely an account review. I'm sure down the line, that may come up. And they'll go to that now that they have our or faith and confidence in them. I don't know. But that was purely something I didn't expect. Like I said, I fully walked in there expecting a hard sell or at least a sell on something. Um, so, there it is. Nothing shocking. It felt really good, because in general we were on the right path. My wife can quit working totally if she wants now, which, she's only 57, so that's really great for her. It still scares me. I don't have the kind of money where I think I'm wealthy, but, we saved well compared to what, we spend. And, it's like we had to tell her, we, I don't know what to do with that extra money you think we're going to have. I don't want to buy a boat. I don't want to buy, there's nothing I want. I'd have nothing to spend it on. So there it is. I don't know what to ask you to comment about. I just really wanted to inform you what this looked like and how it turned out. And if you work with Fidelity or Vanguard, maybe sit down with them. There's some interesting thing. They have nice quarterly reports that, break down everything she told me that are free to me. So it was good. It was a good experience. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.